everyone. Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. I hope you and your families are staying healthy right now. Welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories, our weekly podcast dedicated to all things outdoors here in Minnesota and kind of areas nearby. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors who help us get these stories on the air each week. Our good friends at Rapala, Ice Castles, Hewitt Docks, Starbank, and of course, Connecticut. Thank you for helping us get the Minnesota Bound podcast online. And today we're going to talk a little bit about dreams and adventure at a place called the North Shore. Along today is Carl Haensel. Carl, can you hear me? Are you at home? Are you safe?
Yeah, I am here. I'm up along the North Shore, Lake Superior, looking out across the lake today, and it's just a little bit of sprinkles in the air.
Carl is the proprietor of a little business called Namebimi. Did I say that correct?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I always
it's an odd one, I understand.
But like, I almost live vicariously through you and what you do. You are a fishing soul. You are a photographer. You are a writer. You are a teacher, a farmer. Now all kinds of stuff. Like what are you doing up there?
Oh, that's a great question, and it is a little bit of everything at all points in time. Depending upon the seasonality of and what's going on, that really has been part of what has shaped my thought process about what I do, and working with what goes on in the North Shore of Minnesota, and what myself and my wife Jade do on an annual basis. Everything from whether that's teaching folks through the seasons and guiding, writing about what we do, traveling to different places and shooting photos, harvesting the things that we can harvest sustainably out of the North Woods. There's a lot of different stuff up here.
Is it fair to say that the foundation of all this for you is fishing?
It is. It's I've got into this world as I'm a biologist and ecologist by training, and I got into all of it because I love fishing, and I have loved fishing ever since I've been a really small kid. My parents have old Super 8 video of me in the canoe in the yard at age 2.5, casting into the lawn because I could not wait to fish.
Yeah. And that passion never goes away, right?
No, it doesn't. And it's and that's what I enjoy, sharing with folks. It gets me excited. It gets me out of bed at 5 a.m. to get up on these North Shore streams, whether that's for steelhead in the spring or brook trout in the summer, or exploring down rocky trails and trying to find some hidden spot that I've heard a rumor about, and it keeps it drives me, really.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up north of the Twin Cities in northern Anoka County, where I think there's a lot of folks that fall into that category. If it was significantly rural as a kid, and there wasn't much going around there, and it's suburban expansion has crept in at this point in time. I'm still fortunate enough that I can jot back to my parents' house and walk back behind it, and still occasionally have the opportunity to search for deer and turkeys and everything else down there. But we covered a lot of ground, and after I started reading about some of these places, I did my best to convince my father to go up to the North Shore and to go into some of these deep canyons and to drag me all around all these places, because yeah, the mystery of the North Shore. And, as someone who grew up on the Anoka County Sand Plain, anything with elevation and topography spoke to me. So the
Yep.
first time that I came down that hill in Duluth, I was like, oh my God, this is it.
This is Minnesota, right? Like,
It's hard to believe there are people still that, they come up and they've heard about this and they've never visited the North Shore. Or if they've been to Duluth, they've never been north of Duluth. And I love taking them, up and hiking into remote places. And they're like, I can't believe it. I thought every waterfall was categorized, cataloged, and that people knew where all these things are. And I'm like, well, we're going to see waterfalls that aren't in any book today, and they are more beautiful than anything you've seen a picture of, and no one else visits them.
I've always thought, or guess, I should say, that for your fishing trips, your guide trips, for a lot of your clients, in some ways, it's less about the fish and more about those moments, seeing those things. Is that a little too thick, or is that a little bit accurate?
It is a little bit accurate, and this is my 25th year of guiding here in 2020, which sort of snuck up on me in some way, shape, or form. And I've learned over time that uh, as a guide, there's a couple key things that I look at. I have the reasons why I guide, and I always keep focused on those for myself, for my own fulfillment. But certainly, I try to look at every trip is for the people that are coming, and I customize everything. So if they're excited about something, whether that's I have people who are just as excited about the birding or learning about the ecology or how the forests work or all that type of thing. And I love to get into that ecology and the background history and how the North Shore was formed, with a mid-continent rift 1.1 billion years ago. All these really incredible aspects of the North Shore. But I get people who are hardcore into fishing too, and that, they want to fish for 12 hours straight. So it's all aspects, but I think the magic of the North Shore and of being on remote rivers permeates all of it. Whether you are a fishing fanatic and you want to do nothing more than catch as many fish as you possibly can, or you really want to have a holistic experience and get into all those little nooks and crannies of why this stream canyon is made of rhyolite and why this one's made of basalt, and what are those differences, or learning about all the different rare wildflowers and things. We see all kinds.
You also like to take pictures. Is that photographs? Did that grow out of your adventures? Have you always been that way?
That's a good question. As a I've been shooting photos since I was a kid, and it was something that I always liked to do. Um, I've had the opportunity to be able to professionally shoot a bunch of photos for a number of different publications and outlets and venues over the years that have sort of helped spur those things along. And I think recording what's going on and capturing that moment in time for me is a part of sharing the experience. And overall, whether that's photography, whether it's some of the writing that I get involved with that accompanies that, I think that if I can get people really excited about these locations and about the places, whether it's here in Minnesota on the North Shore, whether it's places that we might end up around the world, I think that those people that get excited about it are going to end up as better advocates for our resources. And that's that all rolls together, I think, for me, with a lot of the different roles that I play in the conservation community where some of these photographs end up.
Yeah. My guest today, Carl Haensel of Namebimi, up from the North Shore of Minnesota. He is the singular resource. If you're going to fish up there, this is the guy you want to talk to. Carl, your name kind of became synonymous with the Fly Expo, with the great waters, and the great legacy there. How did you get involved with that show, which is, the fly fishing show here in the Twin Cities?
It's a good question. It's the gentleman who started it, Tom Helgeson, who passed away a number of years ago, was a personal friend of mine, and I'd always had the opportunity to and work with Tom and play a role in trying to help folks out and engage with the show. And when Tom passed away, his son and daughter worked to take on that legacy and really shouldered a huge burden. And I certainly have to give a shout out to Baird and Carrie for and the entire family for really trying to bring that show forward, which they did for a number of years. But it's a lot of work putting on a that type of large sporting show. So we talked about it, and it was it was close there for a while. And the family discussed it, and they thought the best way for it to move forward was that the show could formally be taken over by Trout Unlimited and Minnesota Trout Unlimited, and that myself and my wife Jade would operate it, so that it operates to benefit the entire community and the entire fly fishing community, and that's been a great thing, and I'm really glad that I've had the chance to play that role for the last number of years. Of course, this year in 2020, along with everything else in the world, we had to cancel it. It would have been in March, but we are certainly significantly looking forward to 2021 at this point in time.
Yeah, all of us are, and for people who may not understand Minnesota's, I'll call it a trout fishing scene versus fly fishing. Like, how big is it? I mean, how many people fish trout, and how diverse are our resources here?
That's an interesting question, because there are folks who might fish on the East Coast or the West Coast and might not realize that in southern Minnesota, in the driftless and up along the North Shore, we literally have thousands of miles of designated trout water. We're talking about north of 1,200 miles of trout water in southeast Minnesota, of incredible spring creeks with significant trout density, where when I started guiding on some of those streams in the 1990s, people would just be blown away by the quality of the fish that they could catch. And they're like, oh, I don't have to go to Colorado or Montana or other these places to be able to have a realistic shot at wild quality brown trout fishing. And those thousands of miles of water, whether it's in the driftless or it's up on the North Shore, where we again have north of 1,200 miles of designated trout water in the top 3 counties of Minnesota alone, in Lake Cook and St. Louis County, generally most of them flowing toward Lake Superior. There you've got folks, just amazed by the fact that there are these stunningly beautiful wilderness trout streams, that some of which see virtually no pressure, because you got to hike in and get to them. They're not all easy to reach up. But if you hike in and
Sorry, I was going to say, by no pressure, you mean literally no pressure. Nobody fishes.
Yeah. There's places where I could tell you that you got a good shot at brook trout that could, hit that, 12, 14, 16, maybe even larger size. And I could tell folks where they might be able to find them, but they're probably not going to go there, because, well, you really have to take that initiative to get off grid and hike into some of these upper reaches and cover some ground, because there aren't trails.
Yeah.
And there have been some really cool, there are people who've gotten out in some of the last years, and we've seen some videos. There's a great filmmaker in Duluth here with Blue Forest Films that has done some really cool stuff, and they've put out some stuff where they've shot videos of rafts going down some of these Northwoods rivers, and they're pulling some big brook trout out. So people are getting in there, but you got to make an effort.
So, with the way the world is right now, Carl, people feel like they're kind of anchored to their homes. When they go away to get outside, it's, at least right now, meant to be sort of temporary. Like, are there opportunities along Lake Superior right now, or is everything shut down and people are staying out of the woods?
It's we are definitely seeing anglers out right now. We are just on the lower shore right now in the Duluth up to Tetegooch State Park, the Baptism River, that area. The Steelhead Run is a large quantity into it. It's certainly not over yet. Rivers like the Baptism are still running well, and plenty of fish around right now. And I've been really excited this spring because we've been seeing a lot more young people, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters getting out on the water, doing some fishing on the Steelhead rivers, and people are getting out now with the brook trout really start getting going here by the second, third week of May, even though the season opens up along with the rest of trout season, in places in Minnesota in April. I never recommend that people come up searching for brookies in April in Minnesota on the North Shore. The trout are just, those brook trout in the upper reaches are hunkered down and they're cold. But now with our warmer weather finally moving this way, there's a lot of fishing to be had. There's, depending upon how you count it, even just in the city of Duluth, there's more than a dozen trout streams. And some of those absolutely are fishable. Minnesota Trout Unlimited is putting in habitat improvement and working on stuff on some of the streams, whether that be Miller Creek, Chester Creek, Keene Creek, and folks can get right out on those with only going a few miles from their houses sometimes. And we're pretty fortunate, whether that's here up north or on some of the stuff further down south and around the metro and in the driftless. There's a lot of trout accessibility that's much closer than people realize.
So first off, I'm not being facetious in asking this. I'm being honest. Your schedule is pretty tight. You are a very popular fishing guide. If people cannot book your time, what do you tell them to do? Where do you tell them to go?
That's certainly an interesting question, and I do have that happen. There's times when people call up, and I don't necessarily have the time. I look at this, I'm happy to talk with people, and I always try to spend a bunch of time on the phone or via email with people that have questions and try to get them to water that is realistic for them to experience. I want everybody, whether I guide them or not, to go out and have a good time on the water. Because again, if they go out and they have a good time, they experience a beautiful place, maybe they catch a big fish if they're looking for steelhead, or they catch some brookies and get on a beautiful river, they're going to be a better advocate for those resources because they've seen them, because they care about them. And I take as much time as I can sometimes if I'm if I'm on the water in a normal year where I'm out doing this 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, depending upon what's going on. Sometimes I have a little more time to chat than others, but I do try to get folks to places that are realistic. So I mean, on the North Shore, there are little tiny places that are tucked and hidden away, and that I I'm not necessarily going to share every place, or some of those places that I might have worked years to try to cultivate or find a little hard to access nook off the end of the road off of a trail that's pretty hard to find.
Yep.
But it's really realistic for people. Rivers, like I've mentioned, the baptism in Tetagooch State Park. There are steelhead in that right now. There's going to be steelhead for the next few weeks, and people can go up and they can access it. And there's hiking trails. It's within a state park system. They can get to it. And there's a lot of rivers that fall into that category on the Minnesota North Shore that have good public access, that have parking, that have some hiking on them, whether that be for migratory fish like steelhead or coaster brook trout or what have you, or that be for just resident brook trout. We've had some management changes in years past, and now on some of the streams like further up the shore, like the Cascade River within Cascade River State Park, that used to be managed to have small steelhead added in there. At this point in time, it's entirely wild brook trout above the first barrier falls, and it's not a secret. You still have to hike, and you got to clamber around, and you got to climb through, up and down hiking trails and make your way along the river. But there's brook trout for people that want to get to them.
One of the pieces of advice I give people, it's no secret. I love the North Shore. My wife and I got married up there. I have fished and fished and fished there for many years. The water always changes. So a spot that might be a decent fishery one year, the next year, it's almost like the fish are gone. So I always suggest that people who are going to visit call the fisheries office either in Grand Marais or Finland. I feel like those people are just sitting there with their feet on a desk waiting to talk to somebody.
We're pretty fortunate that all three North Shore fisheries areas, whether that's Steve Persons up in Grand Marais, we've got other great fisheries managers in Finland and down in Duluth area fisheries office. They do a great job managing those fisheries. They've been very proactive, and they're really trying to get people out on the water. Up in Grand Marais, there are pieces of water, including some of the stock designated trout lakes. We simply want more people to go out and fish them because they're not used quite enough. I still recommend that people largely do catch and release on some of those stocked bodies of water, because we can grow some really big fish if people treat them right. I mean, that's some of those inland trout lakes, it's absolutely realistic to have a shot at brook trout in that 16 to 20 inch range, as long as we treat them right. But some of those lakes are remote enough that if you call the Grand Marais Fisheries Office and you ask, they'll be like, "Hey, if we don't get more people using these resources, we're actually not going to stock them."
Mm-hmm.
So it's those opportunities are absolutely up there.
And there's something about chasing brook trout. It's almost like it's its own game, where you get in a boat, you go to a lake, you might catch a bass, you might catch a northern, you might catch a couple of sunfish, you might catch a walleye, But for those of us who love brook trout fishing, it's more than a passion. It's almost like a disease. You have blinders on. You are going one direction for something very specific. I mean, what is the draw? Is it because they're a native fish?
Certainly, as we only have two native salmonids in Minnesota, and only one that lives in streams. So we have brook trout and lake trout. And brook trout not only are native, but they're stunningly beautiful. I mean, you have those brilliant red spots with blue halos around them. They're just a fish with that screams out, "Wow, this is one of our most brilliantly a tired fish in the state. And that's great. But they also are a fish that is aggressive, and it's going to rise to a dry fly. It's going to hit a streamer. It's if you find them in the right place at the right time. Yeah, I think that's the part of the draw is that it's just an intriguing fish to interact with. And on the North Shore, that that draw of trying to find the giant brook trout on a secret stream somewhere off the grid, it captures so many people's imagination because we have these just hundreds upon hundreds of miles of above barrier waters up here, and you'll step into a store, or you'll stop at a bar, and people will be they'll be telling stories. And the amount of times I've had people say, "Hey, Carl, come over here. I got a picture to show me." And they show me this photo, and it's this huge crimson flanked brook trout, and they're like, "This one taped out to 20 and a half inches or 21 inches, and it came from a stream." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't believe it." And they said it. They said, "Well, yeah, it's true." And I said, "Well, can you tell me where it is?" They said, "No."
Right, right.
No, never. They'll never tell you where it is, but they're out there. And I think that it's like finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when you find the perfect brookie hole.
Yeah.
And just like you said, there's part of this that changes year to year, whether that's a beaver dam that is there one year and gone the next, or something that that alters where it's an ongoing quest. And it's that quest that drives me for a lot of what I explore.
Yeah, I think so too. My boys are such a big part of my outdoor world these days. My 9 and 11-year-olds, we always end the brook trout season up on the shore, and we've got really two spots that we visit that are pretty consistent. And my 11-year-old has been standing and casting from the same rock for, I think this will be 6 years if in the fall we're allowed to get up there. Water levels are different. The flora is a little bit different, but the end result is always the same. And it's magical for a kid to just go, to head upstream with that just wonderful sort of tannic clear water. There's very little development, right? So you feel like you are really out there, and those are sensations that everyone can experience. They just have to make the effort to actually do it.
Yeah,
And
they just have to. They have to do it, and and get out there. But what you're saying about for kids, that's one of the things that I love, and I love it so much to be able to introduce youth and new fly anglers on the North Shore, because it's such a great place to do it, because it's realistic. And
yes.
It's like there's a lot of times, like if you fish right now in the driftless, which is a great time right now to in late spring, segueing, through spring into early summer is a stunning time to fish in the driftless. But I'll be the first to tell you that if you head, in middle or late July or middle of August into a driftless stream, and it's clear and it's low and it's 85 degrees out, those fish are going to be hard to catch. The North Shore trout, a lot of times they're willing, and it offers kids
Yes, they are.
such an awesome opportunity to have realistic success and be able to catch their first trout on a fly.
my desk here at the house, if I turn my chair, and I'm going to do it right now, 180 degrees away from my roll top is our kind of homemade roll top tying desk that the boys use. And I look at some of their creations. Don't tell anyone, but they are just god awful. But you know what? Brook trout absolutely love them, right? At times those fish are not very picky. They're just very willing, like you said. And I think that's fun for them.
Yeah. And that is characteristic of almost all the North Shore streams. It has to do with the ecology of them up here. It's because these streams are significantly less fertile. They produce, we measure it, from a biology standpoint in the amounts of pounds of trout per acre of water that they produce in a year. And in some cases, they might produce 20% that a Southeast Minnesota stream would. But because of that, every fish in there needs to be an opportunist. And if something comes along, that trout needs to look at it and go, hey, I could eat that. And that's what I like with the ability of, those types of flies. And, people who want to start off fly tying, bring them up to the North Shore. A trout's probably going to eat it.
And they do, and that is just magic. All right, so let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. People are going to want to meet you and visit with you. What is the best way for them to do that?
Well, people can certainly check out our website. They can, we've got certainly the social media. You can follow us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. But you can, if you want to read more about what we have got going on, you can go to namebini.com. That's NAMEBINI.com, and see what's on there. And we're always happy or phone calls or messages from people who want to engage and learn, whether that's about the guiding, the writing that we do for different magazines, some of the different travel stuff that we've done. Always happy to talk to people about it.
And two more things before we wrap this up that I think are so important. There's a book in the works because you have just so much time to sit and write.
Well, it's cold winter nights are there's not a lot of going on the streams up here. But yes, I'm in the process of wrapping up a new fly fisher's guide to Minnesota that will cover both cold water and warm water fishing opportunities around the state. That'll come out working with Wilderness Adventures Press out of Montana. And that, we'll see how our publishing time frame holds here. But it'll certainly we're just about wrapped with that, and as soon as that's able to be printed, hopefully that will get out in the not too distant future. But really excited about that particular book. So that's not only the trout streams up north and the trout streams in southeast Minnesota, but it's got the warm water rivers, warm water lake opportunities, the trout lakes up here in northern Minnesota. So all the places that you want to know. We're not giving away every opportunity for everybody, but a lot of information to get folks started, and information and tips and tricks from from other shops and guides around the state as well. I've always been a firm believer as a fly fishing guide that I guide on water that I am intimately familiar with, and there are some awesome guides and shops around the state that can get you on all sorts of warm water and cold water fly fishing opportunities. And my wife Jade and I had the opportunity over this last year to travel around, shoot a ton of photos. We've done some crazy road trips for this book, which has been a lot of fun, seeing how many trout streams we can visit in a day to shoot as many photos as possible.
The other thing you're getting into is farming, sort of. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's I've always looked at our North Shore world and the forests and the landscape of the North Shore as being able to play a role in supporting, feeding our community and providing for all of us. Certainly, with the name of our business, Namebimi, acknowledging the original Ojibwe name for the Sucker River that we live in the watershed of. I've looked at, people have been able to exist here for 10,000 years sustainably. We should be able to sustainably harvest a bunch of stuff from this watershed and from this land. So whether that is maple syrup, we've done stuff with fiddleheads and ramps, blueberries, a wide variety of things that can come off the landscape and be realistically sustainably harvested. Right now, fiddlehead ferns, which are the young shoots of an ostrich fern, are a great foraging opportunity. What we've done is we've taken some of our streamside property, and we've tried to manage the forest to be able to produce larger scale quantities of some of these things sustainably. If you walk through the forest in the middle of summer, you'd never know it, because it looks pretty much just like a forest would absolutely anywhere else. But if you look at it closely, you realize, well, it's really supporting a lot of these specific species that can be harvested sustainably. And fiddlehead ostrich ferns are one of those. But there's a lot of other different things that we get into up here, as do other folks, whether that's maple syrup or blueberries or what have you.
I think that is a growing trend right now. No pun intended. But I feel like people are on the prowl. I feel like people are, and this isn't a COVID thing. I feel like this has been going on for a couple of years. People want to find stuff and be a little more sustainable and discover things that, like you said, a lot of folks might walk right past in the woods. I think there's some magic in understanding what we have around us and what we've had around us for a long time.
Yeah, well, I look at ramps, and a lot of people, if you've not heard of them, they taste somewhere about in between onion and garlic. And they can be found in the floodplains of a lot of our trout streams in many places throughout the state. But most people walk right by them, never know that they're there, and they don't know that they are a great addition to any meal. If you like that type of thing, they're a stunning flavoring. There's plenty of people that those in the know. If you're somewhere where you can sustainably and appropriately harvest fish, I'll tell you, they're great with the trout in a pan in those places where you can do that.
So a funny story. I do a couple of trout camps every year, and I have access to some private property down in southeast Minnesota where we have access to camp. And this has probably been 5 or 6 years ago. I had a couple of friends down there, and we were set up in this dark valley, tucked in next to the stream in this tight bluff. And at the end of the trip, my good friend Todd says, "I owe you an apology. I have a story for you." I said, "Okay." He said, the first night I crawled into my tent and I thought, man, Sherck stinks. He needs a shower. I never knew he was that guy. And the second day we fished and Bill still smelled, and I crawled into my tent on that second night and thought, he stinks. Well, wait a second. I still smell it. Maybe it's me. And then he realized that we were camped out amongst these wild onions. And that's what he was smelling, right? When you're in the woods, if you know what they are and you know the season, which is really right now, where they are really going nuts, there's kind of this pungent, tart smell to the woods. And that's what Todd was smelling the whole time, and he thought it was me.
They do. You could make that mistake. I love that story. That's excellent. And now you got a spot you can go back and pick them.
Well, and every time I see those, and last weekend, as a matter of fact, we were down in the Whitewater watershed, and I was showing those from a distance to a couple of people who were along, and they were just intrigued, and they were baffled because there were thousands upon thousands, right? And you can really dig as many as you want.
Yeah, they're pretty sustainably harvestable in a lot of places. So it's another great opportunity to allow the land to provide for us in a way that can be sustainable and appropriate. And that's That really is at the center of what I look to do, because I love to look at the forest and go, well, what can this forest do for us to be able to feed us and to be able to allow us to subsist here in a way that will keep the forest here and keep it intact.
Is that what drives you? Is it simple life? Is it slow life?
Well, I think that seeing more people appreciate the natural world and be good advocates for it, that is what drives me. I want to know that I can, feel comfortable and confident that people are going to be able to make good decisions for the landscape that are going to allow these natural resources not just to continue for a few years, but to be able to continue for future generations, and for all of our children moving forward.
Well, Carl, thanks so much for the chat today. I look forward to walking a stream with you at some point. It seems like we're both always working, and when we pass each other, it's in the hallway at a convention or a shop or something like that. So I hope to see you soon. But in the meantime, keep up the good fight. You are working to promote and probably more importantly, protect a couple of resources here that are very, very dear to our hearts. And even for folks who don't quite know them yet, they should appreciate it too. It's the reason Minnesota is such a special place. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I thank you very much. I appreciate it. And, it's just doing the best we can. And the steelhead and the brook trout will be waiting up here on the North Shore for you. They're ready.
Yeah, they are ready always, and for the most part, willing. So thanks, Carl. We will see you real soon. Again, a big thanks to all our sponsors who help make the Minnesota Bound podcast happen. Our good friends at Hewitt Docks, Star Bank, Connecticut Water, Ice Castles, and of course, Rapala. Until next week, get outside and don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors. We'll see you.